Hello, what's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and for today's video I will be remaking my fire tier list for PvE games, and the previous one I made was over 3 years ago. So currently I will be sort of like modifying my tier list to account for patch changes on the cards and also expanding my portfolio and play more cards, because in the original Battleforge I have a certain playstyle and I usually stick to a color like maybe nature, which I rarely play a lot of fire cards or pure fire at that time, and because of the fire season I'm exposed to a lot of fire cards. So here is my updated tier list, but before I move on to that, this is the tier list that I made 3 years ago and I have not changed it. So I will be removing some of the things that are outdated, like the gold power card. Of course, for the Thunder Dragon, as you can see, there's a change of affinity. Instead of the shadow affinity, we got the blue affinity right now. And yeah, so let's just dive right into it. Alright, so how I am going to do this is to go line by line and I will modify along the way. So we'll start from the S tier, see what I'll be modifying down the tier list. And as you can see at the top here, we got the two B Tiers, and I am going to demote them to A tier for both of them. So let me just move it down so I can see the latest version is the latest at the cards at the back. And the reason why I'm moving them down is at the point of creating this tier list, one of the major patch just came out that nerfed B Tier, and after playing with him for quite a bit post nerf, I realized that it is not very strong. He's still relatively very strong, but it doesn't deserve an S tier now. Like, it's not as invincible as before, so it is down to an A tier. That's how I feel for both affinities. So next one is Cluster Explosion, and I would say this is the same as S tier. Very strong card. Fire Dragon, yes, very strong card too. The Rage makes it really crazy, deals insane amount of damage, so S tier. Fire Dancer is also an S tier because of its long range. I still use it fairly often. For Juggernaut, however, I rarely use this card right now because it can be quite paperish, can die quite easily, because for fire there's not a lot of like healing spells, and for those healing spells you need to make use of unity, which means you have to have units that cost less in power so they can summon more of them and you can gather them as a group, as a bunch, for it to be stronger. So for Juggernaut, honestly I would move it down 2 tiers below to B tier. I used to use it a lot, but after playing with it quite a bit, now I think that it is not as strong as I thought. Mine, yes, continue to be S tier, and Shrine of War S tier. No explanations needed. Next on the A tier list, we got Bloodthirst, and I'm going to move this up to S tier because of the buff that it has been given throughout the different patches, and now it is a vital card for buffing up your Fire Dragons or even your B Tier, because the healing stacks, it costs 140 power only, and now it can affect up to 8 units, so that's a very big range, which also pairs well with Unity. Next is Disenchant, the green affinity, and honestly I don't really use Disenchant a lot in PvE because there's not much to debuff your unit from. So honestly I would move it down to a C tier. It's very situational, so Disenchant is 2 tiers down to C tier. Fireworm, A tier. Honestly, it's a pretty good card, but usefulness wise it is down to a B tier for me, 1 tier down as well. Next, Firestalker, very useful, still A tier. Nomad, green affinity, also very useful. I still believe that it's an A tier. Pyromaniac, red affinity, A tier. Ravage, A tier. Still find Ravage quite useful, but honestly I think I will move it down 1 tier down, because I realize there's a lot of cards that I play now that really replaces, or I need the deck slots, and one of the cards that I will remove is Ravage, so it is down to B tier. Skyfire Drake, A tier, very strong flying unit. Sunderer is a pretty fun card, but I will move it to a B tier. It is very strong, but it's costly as well, 110 power, but mostly for tier 1 you'll use mine to clear a lot of the units to help you push through, so Sunderer is not really needed in your deck. Next, Sunstriders, I would still put in A tier. Unity, green affinity, because of its synergy with Bloodthirst and many different cards that you should play to sort of like buff up your army. Unity, I'll move it to S tier. So that would be for the green affinity. Later I'll move on to the blue affinity. And yep, that's it for our A tier list. This is the finalized one. But of course we would see some cards moving up. So let's continue our tier list and let's go to our B tier list. Burning Spears. At this point, I think the card just came out. So a card that looks very, very cool to have. But reality wise, not very, very useful in PvE battles. More of PvP. So Burning Spears, I'll move it down to a D tier. I have really never used Burning Spears in a PvE. It's very, very situational. So D tier for Burning Spears. Next, Cluster Explosion, purple affinity, and I will honestly give this more credit and move it up to A tier. Not as strong as the red affinity, but it's still decently effective, so it's at A tier. Eruption is also underrated. It is a very good last resort, especially for our PvE, to destroy those spawning camps. And because it's almost featured in a lot of my decks and how useful it can be, I will move it to an S tier for Eruption. Fire Spear, another underrated card. I used to think that it was useless, but it was pretty useless at the time before the buff came along with Skylords Reborn. And I'll move it to an A tier just because the damage it deals is a lot. At one point I think it can do 6,000, but the cap is 10,000, so this can totally annihilate a lot of monster, not in a large group, but those singular big creatures like Twilight Dragon or bosses, and even taking down buildings that has a ton of health. So it's in A tier, I would say, for Fire Spear. Gladiatrix is a card that I have almost never used, so honestly I will move it down to a D tier. It's just a walking disenchant. Lava Field, B tier, I will put it the same. Magma Hurler, underrated card. I have used it a lot and I've replaced that as my next Juggernaut, which was in the S tier. So Magma Hurler, honestly, S tier. If you summon a lot of this, coupled with Unity, it's a very strong synergy, and also one Fire Orb, so you can pair it with other faction, other different colored decks. So next up, we'll look at Nomad, red affinity. And honestly, I still think that the green affinity Nomad is better because it can heal, but red affinity can be quite useful if you want to push, you want to clear speed runs quick. So honestly, B tier, I'll keep it at B tier. Next is the Spitfire, and I'll move it up to an A tier. I think Spitfire was also buffed. They deal more damage, and it's a really strong card that has decent air damage and ground damage. The best is against buildings, so because of its long range ability, it is very useful in many maps for Spitfire. So it's the A tier. Tux, I would keep it as a B tier, even though there are a few buffs up ahead. So B tier for Tux. Thunder Wagon, B tier, keep it the same. Volcano, the two affinities, I would still say is B tier, and the rest we have covered. Alright, let's move to C tier, and first we got Backlash, and I also have never used this card. And if you are using Shrine of War, your Void Power will be used up, so why would you even need Backlash? Therefore, just have Shrine of War in your deck and just throw this card away to F tier. Next we got Blaster Cannon, and the red affinity one. This is totally underrated. I've used this card quite a few times and it is insane. It deals a lot of damage to flying units, so honestly I'll move this up to A tier. It is the quintessential card against flying units, and it's really cheap, so you just have to build a couple of these and their damage multiplies with their rage ability. Next, Comet Catcher, I'll put it as a B tier because it is a whole lot of fun to play this, and it has been buffed quite a bit, so cooldown wise quicker, attack range wise further, so much more options to play with for Comet Catcher. Only downside is the 10-second attack that it needs to like charge up and damage the map. So next is Disenchant, and I would say that the green affinity is more useful, so purple affinity is one tier down. Next, Ember Strike, and for Ember Strike I think it could be useful because of its fiery buff, which makes Ember Strike unable to be dazed, so he always have full health and full attacking power. Honestly, I would give Ember Strike a push up to one tier higher. Enforcer, a card that I never use in PvE because it is simply not very useful at all. It's just cheap to play, so I will move it down one tier down to D tier. Enforcer. Fire Swan, red affinity, I have played quite a few times, better than the blue affinity because I want it to deal more damage, so honestly I'll push it one tier higher, even though it's quite situational, but it is more useful than being in the C tier. For the blue affinity, yep, same C tier. Gladiatrix, same argument as the previous one, so I just put both at the D tier. And next we got Moloch, and honestly this card is coupled with Comet Catcher, and that is pretty much its usefulness. Therefore, I would say that it's less useful than Comet Catcher because you can use other cards to gain you ground presence to use your Comet Catcher. So C tier for Moloch. Rage Claws, I would say also C tier. Rallying Banner, C tier, very situational. Scavenger, I would move Scavenger up to a B tier because it is the cheapest Swift unit for tier 1 fire. So if you want to have a Swift unit, usually you use Scavenger first. Next is Signfiend, C tier, same. Suppression, C tier, because usually you have Sunstrider, so suppression is only if you don't use Sunstrider, so it's C tier. Unity, and I'll move Unity up to A tier. It's almost an S, but the difference is the healing. Healing for fire is very valuable, so it doesn't really make sense for me to put the blue affinity Unity to S tier. And next we'll go to Warlock. I'll just put a C tier, situational but not useless. Wrecker, I would say it's more for PvP, so it's like a moving Rallying Banner, but honestly it's not that much expensive to summon a Rallying Banner, so I have Wrecker down to D tier. And yep, Disenchant, we covered that. Next, Aura of Pain, I would say still D tier. Banner of Glory, I've never needed to use this because yeah, there's not one point of time where I needed to refund my Void Power quickly in the early stages of the game. So in the late stages of the game, I have Shrine of War, so I still say that this is D tier. Blaster Cannon, purple affinity, D tier, because you got a red affinity, so you won't need the purple affinity at all. Boom Brothers, D tier as well, I would agree. Earth Shaker, okay, for Earth Shaker, it can be quite useful, so honestly I'll bump it up to a B tier if you want to clear spawning camps quicker, or some like sort of like backup. So it's very very good for our PvE. But honestly this is tier 4, so okay, because it's tier 4 and you got many other options, I'll put it as C tier for Earth Shaker. McMuffin, this is a fun card, so but more useful than most of the cards here, so I'll put it as C tier. Makeshift Tower, C tier as well, in case you need a tier 1 tower. That is one of the most reliable tier 1 tower that you have. Motley Trap, very very situational, but it's very fun to use, and it's not as useless because I used it quite a bit of times to clear units, a big chunk of units, just draw out the enemy from the camp and build a couple of these Motley Traps, and it can be quite strong. It deals a lot of damage, so honestly I'll bump it up to a C tier. Then Mortar Tower, very rarely used because of its needing ground presence and sort of like a minimum distance that you can hit, so I'll keep it as a D tier. Oracle Mask, D tier. Its ability is useful but very unlikely for you to just slot in one of these cards into your precious 20 deck card slots for its ability, so D tier. Pyromaniac, D tier, with the red affinity is more valuable. Scorched Earth, D tier. Termite Hill also D tier. Thunder Dragon, this is the one that is out. It doesn't exist in the game, so Tower of Flames, still D tier, even though it's buffed. Vulcan, D tier. Wallbreaker is more valuable in PvP, so I still say it's D tier. Wildfire, D tier, and the rest we have covered. Next, Dying Breed. There has been a change of Dying Breed, so basically it grants the enemy some looter ability, so when you kill this enemy for the purple affinity, you will gain some looter ability. But honestly I still think, okay, because it's a little bit more useful, I'll move it up to a D tier. Right, next you got Firebomb, and I would stick to the same logic as Motley Traps, but Motley Traps still more useful because it has the self like detonation ability that attacks enemy units in the cone shaped area. So move Firebomb up to 1 tier, up to D tier. Next we got Giant Slayer. It's a PvP card, very useless. Girl Power, it is a card that it doesn't exist anymore, replaced by Fire Force. I'll move on to that later. Inferno Machine F tier for this very situational card, almost unlikely to be used, except I only used it in the previous old Guns of Liar speed run, but now it's not playable. Global Warming also F tier. Inferno, a lot of you guys have been telling me and commenting about this in my previous tier list video, and I would say yes, it is really strong, coupled with Shrine of War, so you can regain back your void power very quickly. So but I still wouldn't give it an A tier. I'll move it as high as a B tier, because after all, it still costs a whole lot of power, and with this power you can summon more units to clear, and then couple that with Shrine of War. So it's only at a point where it's like late game or tier 4 where you want to do more damage to a big group of army, so that makes sense. B tier. It's a 3 tier bump from F tier, so quite a big bump. Next, Rocket Tower. It's a fun card, but not as useless, though still pretty useless. But I will bump it up 1 tier because I have used it for fun decks, and if you can use it for fun decks, it can be a D tier card. Next, Scorched Earth. I will remain as F tier. Magma Spore still F tier as well, but strikers gain a really whole lot of buffs of it. First is the gang up ability similar to Tux. Now there is a Bloodthirsty ability which you can regenerate health for strikers, and also cost of it reduced from 90 power to 75 power. So this has been a very good contender with Nomad, plus it is a S counter, so it's very good against like small units. And I'll move strikers up to an A tier. This is so far like one of the biggest change from a F tier up to an A tier because of its many reiterations and buffs that the Skylords Reborn team has given it. I also have seen it played a lot, and I've tried it. It's really strong, so totally recommend you guys to try strikers if you have not. Next, Sun River, I would still stay by F tier. Voodoo Set also F tier. Virtuoso, pretty useless. Warlock F tier. And on to a few of the new cards. First, Fire Wyrmlings, and I think this card very close to a tier 3 unit, to a lower tier 3 unit, and of course it's represented by its 140 power required to summon it, and it has a lot of different abilities, a lot of damage that it deals, and it can be tanky too. So Fire Wyrmlings, I'll move it to an A tier. If you're playing a pure fire, it is a very good card to have. However, currently there are bugs associated with it, and you get like a lot of like desync from your game, so hopefully this gets fixed, and I know that the team is working hard to fix it and finding out the root problem of Fire Wyrmlings. In case there's any future changes, I would still hope that this will stay in A tier for Fire Wyrmlings. We got Hellhound, very strong unit. I would say it will be A tier 2, because couple it with Unity, with different buffs, with a big group of Hellhounds, it can always use its magma armor to deal a whole ton of damage, and it is like free. The ability is free to use, you just have to gather some damage for the magma armor, so it really deals quite a bit of damage for Hellhound. I tested it quite a bit, very strong. Fire Force, it is a new card revamped from Girl Power, very strong card. Not as strong as what I've mentioned in the few previous cards, but Real Affinity one, honestly I'll give it a B tier. Honestly, it's a big jump. It was F tier, but now it's B tier because it gives you more damage for your melee units. And then C tier for more defense or dealing less damage to your units. Last, we got the Blue Affinity Thunder Wagon. Basically, this just attacks air units, the flamethrower. So I'll just put it as a C tier, 1 tier below the Red Affinity one still. So yes, this is it for my revamped tier list, and do let me know what you guys think of this new tier list. And if you like my video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys again for my next video.